Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada and China. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 1st, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton, it's chilly as it was last night up at Appalachian State when they got knocked off by Georgia Southern, taking things easy at home, made it easy for the New Year bowl posters. But, you know, everything was tough down in Waco, Texas last night, Charlton, as Baylor remained undefeated. And now all the college football playoff people are really nervous.
Yeah, they don't want to see them good old boys from Waco get in there, Big C, but it's all fair, love, and war. They did win the game. Sometimes you need someone to miss a field goal. That seems to be going on a lot lately. We're finished. You know, we can all exhale. Baseball's over. We have a champion, Washington Nationals, and now spring training will come up soon. Some players that ended up with the teams this year will be on a different team next year. We know that happens. Also, college football is always like a year-round thing. I'm saying games on Thursday night for college football as well as the NFL, Big C. And I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. You can follow Big C Sports coming on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, Android TVs, and other TVs around the universe. Big C, we give out this national suicide hotline numbers, 800-273 8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Why is that so important to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we watch the politics of this country every day, and everyone will say politics and sports don't mix, but they do. But these politicians are playing foul ball with the military veterans, Charlton. They're not talking about helping them any day of the week. We're watching them bantering back and forth in Washington over who did what wrong and who did what right.
Yeah.
But do right by the military veterans, Charlton. Give them the aid and the comfort that they need.
Yeah.
Don't short them on mental health issues, Charlton, and coming back to this great country, because so many of those has turned to suicide, unfortunately, since returning from war and tours of duty. That suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton, is there to aid, but we got to do more in this country to help our great veterans and even our everyday citizens. But this number is a step forward, Charlton, to help people out, to have someone to talk to, to listen to you about your problems and your plight. Everybody needs something at some point in life, but these people need it more than others, Charlton. We wouldn't have suicide at such a high rate in this country that we do. But we have to find a way to stem the tide, and the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is just the first step forward.
800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. And I know so many people have their own opinions about what's going on in their own personal lives, and sometimes, as you say, you just need someone to reach out to. But I wanna get into the world of sports, and I know there's a lot of people that want to get into football, and we're going to get a little bit to some Friday Night Lights. But before we even go there, I just want to talk about being grateful. You know, we're all in the blink of an eye. We just got to be grateful, Big C. And I hope that for a lot of kids that are going out to their high school football games, that they're really grateful and pay attention to being safe, and that if they need help, that they call and ask a parent or a friend for help. Big C, does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, all of that comes with rearing at home, to understand responsibility and what you should do that's proper when you're not at home and you're not around your parents. I mean, we've all gone through that stage of growing up of making good and bad decisions. And I think as long as you have your parents involved in you and guiding you the proper way, Charlton, that most children will listen to that. I understand that there's always peer pressure that has always been out there for kids.
Yeah.
But it's also about parental involvement. If you've been involved with your children in the right way, you generally should not have to be concerned about these things.
Yeah, and so we want to make sure that we just say that message to a lot of people. We're going to do something. A lot of high schools are starting playoffs now on Big C's Friday Night Lights. Number 1, Mater Dei, Santa Ana, California. They're at 9-0, followed by number 2, St. Francis Academy. They're out of Maryland. They're 8-1. Their only loss was to Mater Dei. Number 3, St. John Bosco out of Bellflower, California. That team is also 8-1, and their only loss was to Mater Dei. Number 4, we have Lowndes out of Valdosta, Georgia. They're 9-0. And then number 5 is Conner Canyon. And that program, Big C, they're 10-0 on the season. It's amazing how some schools, they even start a week or two earlier than others, Big C. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I always lived the traditional way when I was going to high school, that we started football a week or so after school had started, Charlton. I think it's kind of unfair to the rest of the student body, Charlton, because they're still out with their family. They're doing their summer fun. To start the season prior to high school classes starting, I would love to see things done in the traditional way.
Yeah, I think when money gets in, Big C, that is the traditional way now. Number 6, St. Louis, Honolulu, Hawaii. They're 9-0. Number 7, Mentor, and they are 9-0 in the season. Number 8, IMG Academy out of Florida. They're 8-1. And number 9 is Katy, Texas, 8-0. Number 10 is Duncanville, Texas. They're 8-0. So depending on what polls you have, everybody has their own opinion on what they want to do. And I just appreciate the fact that everybody has a chance to relive their high school Friday Night Lights. I know in the world, Big C, where people don't really think about it too much, it's still one of the things I still remember is, as we talk about teams that play national schedules now, I still remember getting together at the coach's house before or after a game and just breaking bread. But the teams you were playing, they were within maybe an hour's drive. What's some of your better memories of Friday Night Lights? We know some teams, their seasons are over because they did not make the playoffs, but give me your thoughts on what's important to you when it comes to that, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I look at it as a camaraderie with the players that you played with on those home games, is that you were there and your family was outside the locker room, Charlton, after the game to greet you, to be there and to share whether it was a victory or a defeat, Charlton. But it was more of a family and community affair. If you have kids and you're sending them thousands of miles away from their home to play a game, Charlton, as a high schooler, you don't have that emotional attachment that you would have that we had back in those days, Charlton, that everybody was there. It was a community affair, and you could leave after the game and you could go have a gathering, whether it was at a skating ring, Charlton, or wherever, at somebody's house. But you had that, and that's a fond memory that you have that a lot of these kids are being robbed of now for money.
Yeah, and so I just want people to really appreciate it, because some, and we talk about it all the time, some of the high school kids, Big C, they've played their last competitive game. They're not going to go into college. They're not being recruited. So hopefully they can have those memories that are etched in stone. I want to get into some of the historically black colleges. And I know a lot of times people go by rankings, but I want to acknowledge at least some of the top 10 programs that have been there consistently, because rankings are based on somebody's opinion. And sometimes, like we see in college football, someone not even ranked, like a Kansas State, can knock off an Oklahoma. So do the rankings matter? Does your position of how well you play matter? And I just want to acknowledge some of the HBC schools. Southern University, they've been strong on the football map. North Carolina A&T, Alabama State, Florida A&M University, Grambling State, Jackson State, Big C, they've been strong. Norfolk State University, Coppin State, Texas Southern, Delaware State. And I just appreciate the fact that these schools, they're getting a lot of acknowledgement. But we just want to make sure that it's not about who's ranked where. It's about how well they play, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the mainstays of the HBCs, Charlton, that it's always been education first.
Yeah.
They have in recent years not been a roadmap to the NFL, but they've been a roadmap to higher learning and a roadmap to success in the business and private sector.
Yep.
And this is one of the things that you should always look at college football as a platform for.
Yeah.
We know that the NFL is the glory days for anybody who's come out of college to have an opportunity to play there.
Yep.
But you also got to look at the lifelong endeavors that you're looking to endure. We talked yesterday about the black Olympians in the 1936 Olympics, how they were all banned from amateur athletics.
That's right.
After they had won medals in Nazi Germany. The U.S. banned them, not Germany, not the world.
Isn't
the
that
U.S.
amazing?
banned them.
Yeah.
So they had no other way to go but into the private sector, Charlton, to seek employment, because they could no longer compete as an amateur athlete because of their success that they showed the world that blacks were not inferior to others. And this is what the HBC still provides, Charlton. It provides a platform for education. And these become our civic and political leaders in the black community, Charlton, who attend these great universities.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, one thing I'll bring up before we get to college football as well, Big C, there are so many players, they just love the opportunity to compete, especially in an environment where people were saying that you don't measure up, or that you can't handle the competition. And they relish the fact that they can play against some of those top programs when they started integrating football. So I want to get in college football, NCAA football, you know, get those remotes ready, Big C, especially down south where football is really big, because college football is kicking off and it's going into high gear on Saturday with a lot of massive matchups around the country and some of the biggest games. You know, I'll let you comment on them, but I want to start with one game tonight, and this is paying honor to our military veterans and also our military academies. The Navy Academy, they're 6-1 on this season. They're playing at Connecticut, that's 2-6. That's an ESPN2 broadcast on a grass surface, and the Navy's favored by 27.5. I know it's very important to you when we celebrate our naval schools. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things I admire, Charlton, about the academy schools when we talk about Navy, Air Force, and Army, Charlton, is that these young men are the future leaders of our country, whether it's in military or politics, just like we talked about with the HBCs, Charlton. They don't go to school, Charlton, looking to aspire to be in the NFL.
Right.
They go to school, they go play college athletics, Charlton, aspiring to be leaders of our great nation. That's what college athletics is all about, building character, building responsibility. And this is what these great institutions provide. We don't look at it on the mainstream level saying, well, they don't play great competition. Right. You know, they don't have the big-time stars. They don't have Heisman candidates anymore. They don't have NFL passing leaders, Charlton. But they build great young men.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And that's one of the things that's been lost in college athletics, is the foundation of people. Not the foundations of a school, but the foundations of people. And that's what the Naval Academies do. When they play their final college game, Charlton, that's their final game generally of being a football, basketball, baseball player, whatever sport that they're playing in the academies.
Right.
And they have respect for their opponents. You think about the Army-Navy game that's played every year in Philadelphia. When the team loses, Charlton, they go over and they sing the fight song of that university, whether it's Army or Navy.
Yep.
Then they go together as collective two teams, Charlton, and they go over and win the fight song for the winning team.
Yeah.
That's character that we don't get anywhere. That's sportsman and gamesmanship we don't get anywhere else in college football, and it's not taught around the nation, but it's something that's built mutual respect throughout the academies, Charlton.
That's very well said, and we could all appreciate that, too. I want to get into some of the bigger games coming up. We have Michigan that really has to be feeling themselves right now. They're ranked number 15 in the country. They're 6-2 on the season, and they're at Maryland, which is 3-5. That's a noontime kickoff on ABC Sports, and Michigan's favored by 21.5. And when you look at how bad they beat down Notre Dame, it's amazing they're only getting 21.5 at Maryland. But Maryland can score points at times. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Maryland got off to a rocket-hot start, Charlton, at the beginning of the season, but they've come back down to earth. Mike Locksley was figured out as the head coach. He was an assistant at Alabama, and he came in. He didn't realize he had to coach for the long run. He coached for the short run the first couple games of the season.
Yeah.
Michigan has seemed to have caught their stride. They had a beat down in Notre Dame last week, Charlton, after they had a tough one the week before. But this is Michigan getting back on track, Charlton, hoping to still be able to compete for a Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I think Harbaugh can at least breathe. He can breathe easily at least this week, Big C. North Carolina State, they're 4-3. They're at number 22, Wake Forest. And Wake Forest is 6-1, kind of sneaking up on people still. It's a noontime kickoff, ESPN. It's on artificial surface. And Wake Forest is favored by 7.5 in their game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Wake Forest has had an outstanding season, Charlton. They're second in the ACC behind Clemson, and they may eventually meet Clemson, Charlton, for the ACC title. And so this is a game that they can't afford to let slip by. They have to stay on top of their game.
Wouldn't it be something if they knocked off Clemson? You know, Clemson, every year they have that one game. It's like that one game where somebody sneaks up on them. I want to go to the state of Texas. You talk about Baylor being the better program in Texas so far. I don't know if they have the better athletes, but right now they're playing as well. And then SMU might have something to say about that too. But Texas, San Antonio, they're 3-4. They're at Texas A&M 5-3. So you have an SEC program. It's a noontime kickoff on the SEC network on grass surface. And Texas A&M, they're actually favored by quite a large point, Big C. They put them boys at 38.5-point favorite. So why are schools getting so much money late in the season? Normally they take the beat-down games earlier in September, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, this just comes on the schedule. When you look at the large schools, Charlton, they like to schedule a smaller school in the latter part of the season, hoping to get their players some rest and not get beat up on so much. A&M should really handle the Roadrunners down in San Antonio.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask you a game, kind of licking your wounds game. Virginia Tech, they're 5-2. At number 16, Notre Dame, also 5-2. That's a 2:30 kickoff on NBC Sports, artificial surface. Notre Dame's favored by 17.5. But on your thoughts, what did people learn about how to play against Notre Dame watching the Michigan beat down, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, each game has its own formula each week. You can't take what someone did and say, okay, we're going to execute the same game plan, because you have different players and different mentalities. It'd be the same as with Kansas State and Oklahoma last week. What would you do to go out and beat Oklahoma in the following game, Charlton? It's about having your players prepped each week for each game. It's the same thing when Wisconsin lost that game to Illinois.
Yep.
Who would have ever thunk it?
Yep, that's true, Big C. And another big game, too, when you can learn a lot about what's going to happen in the SEC. You have number 6 Florida. They're 7-1 versus number 7 Georgia. They're 6-1. That game's in Jacksonville. It's a 3:30 kickoff, and I think they call it the world's largest, is it bathroom party or cocktail party? I'm not really sure, but we'll find out what it is. But it's a 3:30 kickoff, CBS Sports, on grass surface. Now, Georgia's favored by 6.5. That Florida defense is very good. I'm sure they're going to watch a lot of the replays of that South Carolina game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is an elimination game in the SEC, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. I give Florida the advantage in this game when I think about they have the best 2 pass rushers that are going to be in this game. They've gotten back healthy again, Charlton, and that's a key. Kyle Trask is quarterback. He's played much better than advertised. I think Florida's a better team with him at quarterback than what they were with Felipe Franks prior to him getting injured.
Yep.
When I look at Georgia, Jake Fromm has not lived up to his billing this season, Charlton. There's 2 quarterbacks that transferred out of Georgia that are much better. The running game, this is something that has been Georgia's, go-to, has not been there this year for them. Their offensive line's been a little banged up. I give the advantage to Florida to stay alive in the SEC East, Charlton.
That's a big game. Now, after you get up, sometimes you knock somebody off. You might be still living on that. That's over. They got to make sure they don't do that. Number 25, Kansas State. They're 5-2 on the season, and they're at Kansas. So that's an all-Kansas affair. Kansas is only 3-4. It's a 3:30 kickoff on Fox Sports 1. Artificial surface. Now, K-State is favored by 6.5 points. And that's a team that knocked off Oklahoma by 7. So they're saying that Kansas is a better team than Oklahoma. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a battle for the Sunflower State of Kansas, Charlton. And Les Miles has his team playing a lot better than the record that they're showing this year. Yes, Kansas State was up on Oklahoma, but you got to wonder if they're going to have an emotional letdown, Charlton. But in these rivalry games that you have, that you talked about, the Florida, Georgia game. Yep. Now we got the Kansas State game for the Sunflower Trophy, Charlton, in Kansas. This is one of those, Charlton, when you got guys who grew up against each other,
it's
get
different.
a chance to really let it fly.
It really is different. And speaking of letting it fly, this game doesn't have the cachet it used to have, but you have Miami, the Hurricanes, they're 4-4. They're at the Florida State Seminoles, also 4-4 at Big C. Might be some good lotto numbers. The game is 3:30 kickoff on ABC Sports East Coast time. It's on grass surface, and Florida State's favorite by 3.5. Now, I remember coming into the season where Taggart at Florida State, people were saying he's got to get out of there. And then Miami had a lot of turnovers, but they lost a close game to Florida to start the season. Give me a feeling on where these two programs are headed, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this game doesn't have the muster that it once had back in the 90s. If you think about it, these two teams playing each other were the rivalry of the decade of the 90s. 5 of those games were decided by field goal kicks that went wide right. For Florida State.
Yep.
So when you think about it, this game doesn't have the muster it had 20 years ago, Charlton, but a lot of the players in this game are players who grew up against each other, and it still means a lot to them.
Yeah, it means a lot. It's also big for recruiting. Those teams might be down at times, but they'll always get up. I just want to celebrate again the academies, Army 3-5. They're at Air Force. Air Force is 6-2, running that wishbone very well. It's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS Sports Network. Artificial surface, and the Air Force Academy is flying high, favored by 14.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Air Force Academy is one of those, like I said, fine institutions that you enjoy watching these young men play. The fundamentals that they exude on the field, the sportsmanship that they bring to a contest, Charlton, is nothing less than, magnificent.
Yeah,
I expect Air Force with that wishbone attack to run up and down the field.
Yeah, they're really tough. Couple of other games. New Mexico, they are 2-6 at Nevada, 4-4, and that's a 10:30 kickoff East Coast time, ESPNU. Artificial surface, Nevada's favored by 4.5. Number 21 Boise State 6-1 at San Jose State 4-4. That's a 10:30 kickoff East Coast time on Comcast Sports Network. And then San Jose State is starting to play a little bit better football. I know they knocked off Arkansas of the SEC earlier in the year, but Boise State is favored by 17.5 in that one. I want to get your thoughts on a couple of more big games. Coming out to the West Coast, you have the University of Utah, the Utes. They're ranked number 10 in the country. They're 7-1 on the season. They're at the Washington Huskies, 5-3. And this program, both of them are kind of, even though Utah only had one loss to USC, they just feel like they're not a top 10 team unless they're at home. They're on the road again at Washington, which is a tough place to win. 4:00 p.m. kickoff on Fox Sports. It's artificial surface. But Utah is favored by 3.5 on the road. They lose mostly. When they lose on the road, Big C. Give me your thoughts on that game.
Well, the Utes still have to be kicking themselves for that early season loss in Los Angeles to USC, Charlton. Now they must. This is a must-win situation against the Huskies if they hope to stay in contention for the college football playoff. They must win this game this weekend.
They got to get this game. Now I want to take it down to your neck of the woods. We have Mississippi, which is 3-5. They're at number 12 Auburn, 6-2. That's a 7:00 kickoff East Coast time on grass, and Auburn is favored by 19.5. But this game, you don't want to have any. Auburn can't slip anymore. They're not going to be in bowl contention for the Final Four, but at least they still have a chance to have a good season. They can't overlook Mississippi. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they can't overlook anybody, and after that dismal passing performance that they had last week against LSU, Charlton, where they only passed for less than 100 yards in the game, Bo Nix has to do something spectacular in this game. I know they got Auburn with a huge point favorite, but they could be in for a letdown because Mississippi is going to be gunning for them because they know that there's vulnerabilities in Auburn right now.
Yeah, I want to give you a couple of more teams that are ranked. We have number 14 SMU. They're 8-0. They're at number 23 Memphis. They are 7-1. Now these two teams have a very thin margin as far as losing any games, Big C. And when you think about it, SMU still undefeated in Texas, where football's really big, along with Baylor, and that game kicks off, and their time for the kickoff is 7:30 East Coast time on artificial surface, and Memphis is favored by 5.5. So the pollsters or the bettors down in Vegas are looking for another undefeated team to drop. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a showcase for the AAC conference. You have SMU that is still undefeated, hoping to crash the party on New Year's Day, Charlton. This will be a showcase for these two teams, Charlton. Two very high-scoring teams College game day will be there on Saturday. We're looking for a shootout.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I still want to see an SMU undefeated. It'd be nice to see Baylor undefeated down in the state of Texas and see what the pollsters would do with those undefeated teams as far as where they get placed in bowl consideration. I think both of those programs are kind of like Central Florida last year before they went and lost to LSU in the big bowl game. And I want to swing it out to two more games. Mac Brown's 4-4 with North Carolina. They're home versus Virginia. And Virginia's actually 5-3. We're ranked at some time in the season. It's a 7:30 kickoff on the ACC network on grass surface. And Mac Brown's team is favored by 2.5 at home. Big C, are you buying it?
Well, I like Virginia in this contest, Charlton. You got better quarterbacking at Virginia. Mac Brown has done a decent job in returning to college football after a 5-year hiatus, but I still think that Virginia will walk away with the win in this one.
Last game on the West Coast, number 8 Oregon, 7-1 at Southern California, 5-3, and that's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Fox. It's on grass surface. Oregon's favored by 4.5 down in the Coliseum. In the Pac-12, in the biggest media market on the West Coast, number 2 in the country in Los Angeles, I think the Pac-12's pulling for Oregon to come into the Coliseum and get a win because that's the only hope for the Pac-12 to stay relevant. I know Utah has one loss, but Oregon is the sexier of the two programs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Oregon has to come in and dominate in Southern California, Charlton, if they want to impress the pollsters. They really, as you say, could be the only hope for the Pac-12 to get into the college football playoffs. But we know that USC has played some outstanding games at home and knocked off better teams, and Oregon can't come in there sleeping.
Well, Oregon, they got a close win against Washington State, but it took them all the way down to the wire, a last-second field goal. And I know if you're going to be a sexy consideration, a win is a win, but you got to start winning bigger, especially if you're going to jump in that top 4. But you got to get to the Pac-12 first. Some of the teams that took the night off, number 11, Baylor, of course, played against West Virginia Thursday and got that win. Appalachian State, they played Georgia Southern Thursday and lost. Number 1, Alabama's idol. Number 2, LSU. And number 4, Ohio State idol. Number 5, Penn State's idol. Number 9, Oklahoma's idol. Number 13, Minnesota's idol, undefeated, and number 13 in the country. Number 17, Wisconsin's idol. Number 19, Iowa, and number 24, Texas, are idol. So before we get into the Big C timeout and get into some pro football, just give me Big C's thoughts on the state of college football when you have a team in Minnesota that's undefeated, but they're 13 in the country, and then you have a once beaten Oregon and a Utah, and they're ranked in the top 10 and also top 8. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you have multiple teams, Charlton, ranked above Minnesota. Minnesota's come out of the abyss, and P.J. Flick has done a marvelous job with his team there in Minneapolis, Charlton. But this season will play out. They're going to play a couple of teams. Charlton still on their ledger. Ohio State is still there. Penn State is still there. They have opportunity to move up. You know, winning handles itself. So if they can go out and knock off a couple of those teams left on their schedule, Charlton, they'll move up the bracketing. Yeah,
it's all about moving up. It's all about finding your stride and scheduling the right people at the right time. And we see a lot of schools know how to do that early on, and then later in the season, they try to stay undefeated. We're going to come up with what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We're going to come back and talk some NFL football and then also finish off with basketball. We'll hope you take the break and come right back with us in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe. That's iHeartRadio Podcast. You can also follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. And the apps that I love is by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going. Also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TV, and many other smart TVs around the universe. Last night, down in the desert, it was a game that was better than people were expecting, Big C. I want to just give props out to both programs. In the NFC West, you have the San Francisco 49ers remaining undefeated on the season when you think about how tough that is to do, Big C. They slipped by the Arizona Cardinals 28-25, and I want to get your thoughts on how both teams are trending. Also, the Niners got there early, but Arizona's not that bad of a team. Your thoughts?
Well, I always thought this game would be much better and closer than all the experts predicted because Arizona had beaten them 8 consecutive games, Charles. This is the first time that Shanahan has beaten them. But one of the things that was going to be difficult was defending the young quarterback, Kyler Murray. I think that Cliff Kingsbury cost the Arizona Cardinals this game more than the players did, Charlton. They had stopped the 49ers on a 3rd and goal with no time to go on the clock, but Kingsbury had called a timeout right before halftime, allowing Garoppolo to throw another touchdown pass. And for Garoppolo, this was his best game of the year with the 49ers, Charlton. He threw 4 touchdown passes. He had over 300 yards, in completion. So the 49ers played a complete game. Everybody had raved about their defensive line, which was pretty much held, neutral by the Arizona Cardinals compared on what they had done before. The way they beat up on Carolina the week before, and the Cardinals were able to put 25 points on the scoreboard against them, shows that there's weekly improvement with this Arizona Cardinals football team.
Yeah, really impressed with that. So we'll jump right into it. In Week 9 of Big C's NFL football, the teams that have a bye week, Cincinnati Bengals, I think they thought they had a bye week the first 9 weeks, Big C, for Cincinnati, or at least the first 8 weeks. They're winless on the season. We'll see if they can get on the winning side of things. The Falcons, they only have 1 win. You have the Rams and the Saints, they're all with the bye week. We look at the Texans. They're 5-3 on the season against the Jaguars, Jacksonville Jaguars, 4-4 on the season. These guys are over in London, a London International Series game. It's at 9:30 a.m. East Coast time start on Sunday on the NFL Network. And the Texans go across the pond and they carry a 1.5-point favorite. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Texans are going to have to make some defensive adjustments. They lost J.J. Watt for the season last week in that win over the Raiders, Charlton. But Deshaun Watson has been playing outstanding football. They have to protect against the run. Without J.J. Watt, Leonard Fournette could run wild on this Texan defense. Gunnar Minshew has still played outstanding football as a rookie 6th-round draft pick at quarterback. We know that Deshaun Watson has really taken his game to the next level, Charlton. He has a much improved offensive line. He finally has a stable of running backs that can carry the ball along with that great receiving core that he has.
Yeah, it's impressive. They can't put all the pressure on him. And J.J. Watt, the update on him, is he out for the season, you think? Your thoughts?
He's out for the season with a torn pectoral. He's had surgery on it already.
Wow, really bad luck for him. He's had a couple of injuries over the last couple of seasons. Such a good player and a good person. Big C, the Washington Redskins, they're 1-7 at the Buffalo Bills that are 5-2. Took their lumps last week from Philadelphia. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. Now, Buffalo's favored by 10.5. They got had by Philadelphia. I know the Redskins are struggling, but 10.5 is still, pretty nice for a team that's really still building. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you look at Buffalo's outstanding defense, the Washington Redskins are total disarray. They're going to start Dwayne Haskins this week at quarterback, so the rookie is going to get his first nod from the beginning of the game, Charlton, which we hope that he improves throughout the rest of the season because this is what the Washington Redskins need to do. The Buffalo Bills, as you said, lost to Philadelphia last week. The Philadelphia Eagles are a team that's on the rise. The Buffalo Bills, they really haven't beaten anybody with winning records. This should be an easy game for them. Beating Buffalo, beating Washington, they have a losing record.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with a new quarterback coming in. I just want to see him progress. You got to have progress. Big C, another game, the Tennessee Titans, they're 4-4 at the Carolina Panthers 4-3 that really took their lumps out here on the West Coast when they lost to the 49ers last week. It is a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time, Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Carolina Panthers are favored by 3.5, but their defense was so exposed against the 49ers last week. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, their offense was exposed, Charlton. They couldn't score any points more than what the defense was exposed. You got to get some production out of your offense. Tennessee is coming off a victory against Tampa Bay with their backup quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. Can he keep that momentum going this week against Carolina? How will they be emotionally in facing Tennessee? Will Josh Allen be able to rebound at quarterback?
Yeah, the Panthers should have an edge just because they're at home. and we'll see what happens with that. The Vikings, they are 6-2 at the Kansas City Chiefs, 5-3. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And there really isn't a line at this time on the game, but I'm sure Kansas City, the way they played so close to Green Bay, I think Green Bay is a better team than Minnesota. But you never know because the Chiefs' defense just doesn't seem to show up. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Kirk Cousins is coming off a 4-touchdown performance in the previous game, Charlton, and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be facing the NFL's top rusher in Dalvin Cook. We know that defense at times looks like a sieve with water leaking through it, and the Minnesota Vikings should not have a rough time against the Kansas City defense. It's all about where Patrick Mahomes is. He going to play this week?
Wow.
If he plays, the Chiefs have a chance. If not, they could have 4 consecutive losses.
Yeah, the Chiefs are at a disadvantage even at home until Patrick comes back. Mahomes, as you call them, Big C. And then the Jets, Jets, they're 1-6 at the Miami Dolphins, 1-7. You think about Bob Greasy played down for the Dolphins, and, Broadway Joe played for the Jets, of course. Not the same now, Big C, but it's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Jets are favored by 3 over the Dolphins. If the Dolphins are going to win a game, this will be the game they win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about this game, Dalton, you got to wonder who Adam Gase, the head coach of the Jets, would be rooting for. He was fired last year by the Miami Dolphins. He's probably going to be fired this year by the New York Jets. But I think when you look at the Jets, Charlton, you got to look at the acronyms of what it stands for, the Jets. Just in the season soon, and that's what they're looking for.
Well, maybe they will, Big C. Nothing like getting out of there early. But down in that heat and humidity, I'm looking at the Dolphins. Will the Dolphins win a game before the Bengals? Well, the Bengals are idle this week, so they have their chance right now, Big C, to join the ranks of the winning. I want to go to the Northeast. They must be feeling good about themselves. You have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're 4-4 on the season at home versus the Chicago Bears. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Eagles are favored by 4.5. And they found out something when they went to Buffalo. I don't know what it is, but they just played like they had more fire in their belly. And have the Bears lost their fire? Have they lost their direction, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, what the Eagles found up in Buffalo was a running game that Miles Sanders can run the football, Charlton, along with Jordan Howard. These two guys dominated on the ground up in Buffalo in that inclement weather. The quarterback did not have to do that much in the game, so Carson Wentz was able to keep his poise.
Yeah.
What Matt Nagy is doing in Chicago is putting his job in jeopardy, Charlton, by hanging with Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky has lost all confidence as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I saw where Marcus Mariota got benched in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out why Chicago hanging with Mitch Trubisky.
Do you think it's because they drafted him first and they told everybody that he was going to be their savior when really their defense just needed someone who wouldn't turn the ball over so much? But also, when you don't trust them and you want them taking a knee instead of throwing try to throw a fade or whatever and trust your kicker and your kicker missed it, that's how their season ended last year. So it's not just Trubisky, it's the decision-making on the sideline too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's the decision-making, but also it's been the performance of Trubisky that led you to make that decision.
Yeah.
If your quarterback hasn't really done much to help your team, you don't have a running back that's getting the mail done.
Right.
You ran the ball early in the game and you stopped running and you tried to rely on your quarterback who could not hit wide-open receivers.
Yeah.
So you just had no trust or confidence in him as a head coach.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. We'll see what happens. If the Bears can get a win over the Eagles, they might start to right the ship, but I doubt if that's going to happen in Philadelphia. We have the Indianapolis Colts. They're 5-2 on the season. They're at the Pittsburgh Steelers that are 3-4. This game, it concerns me a little bit if you're a Colts because the Steelers, they're not as bad as they looked, but not as good as they could be. But Mike Tomlin told them, look, guys, we get one more win, we're at 500 mark. To be at 500 this part of the season, they're still capable of pulling out a 10-6 season if they get this game. The Colts are 5-2 at the Steelers 3-4. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Colts are favored by 1.5 on the road. Are you buying that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Yes, I am, because when you look at the Steelers, Charlton, 2 of those victories, 2 to 3 victories that they have came against the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. So those teams have no win between them. So as you look at that, and even that other victory, Charlton, came against a sub-500 team. So the Steelers have not showed me enough offensively or defensively to think that they can go out and beat the Colts. I know when you look at the Colts, Charlton, all of their victories have been by 7 points or less. They haven't blown anybody out.
Right.
And if they plan on getting their offensive right, this is the time to do it against the Steelers this weekend.
Well, this is an intriguing game. In many years, you've seen these two teams compete for playoff positions, and it's still available for both of them. You have the Detroit Lions; they're 3-3-1. At the Raiders, 3-4, and the Raiders haven't had a home game since they lost to Kansas City way back when they still had the baseball field out there in Oakland, Big C. So no more baseball field out there in Oakland. They have it all cleaned up, and it's all grass for the Raiders. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff, East Coast time. It's Sunday on Fox Sports. Now the Raiders come back home, and they're favored by 2.5. But this team they've been to Canada to start the preseason. They played the Packers. They've been across the pond, and they've been traveling all over the place, but they beat the Bears across the pond, as a lot of people have done. Now they come back home for Oakland, but they had a home game in Canada, I think Saskatchewan, and they had the game over in London. So home field advantage. If the crowd's been starving for football, it should be a raucous crowd at the Coliseum, Big C. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if they're the Raiders or the Road Warriors, Charlton, because they've been out there for some length of time.
Yeah.
And, the Detroit Lions have been caged up for a long time there at Ford Field. Now they're going to be set out in the open air and get a chance to roam. We know that the Raiders have no pass rush. Josh Jacobs has been a little banged up at running back.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford, if he's going to show people that he's a quality NFL quarterback, this is a game that he can shine against the Oakland Raiders because they lack the pass rush. Derek Carr leads the NFL in completion percentage. Can he exploit the defensive backfield of the Detroit Lions? They traded off their best cornerback.
Yeah.
If Derek Carr is going to have a big-time game, this is time for him to do it.
So with the Raiders and Detroit playing, they similar helmets, same color and that silver color, but this whole thing about the $100 million quarterbacks, and we got to have them to win, but they're not winning. I mean, when you think about it, the Lions don't have a winning record, neither do the Raiders. The Lions are 3-3-1, so they're not a winning record in all their games, and the Raiders are 3-4. If people talk about running backs, are we paying running backs too much money? Are we ever going to hear the thought that we're paying quarterbacks too much money when a lot of the quarterbacks in the league making $100 million contracts, they're not even winning, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there's no way that all these quarterbacks can win, Charlton. You can only have so many quarterbacks with a winning record. But, you put your money into these guys because they're supposed to be the leaders of your franchise. I think this might be the last year for Derek Carr in Oakland. I can see him moving on after this year because there's a couple fine young quarterbacks coming out in the draft. And as the Raiders move to Las Vegas, Gruden is going to want to have his fingerprint on every player on that roster and not take people along that were drafted by somebody else. Matthew Stafford has the most yards in NFL history at this juncture in his career, but they've all been losing yards.
Yeah, that's true too. So we'll see what happens if they'll start more of that talk. I want to stay on the West Coast. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a long flight from Tampa to Seattle, Washington. The Buccaneers are 2-5. The Seattle Seahawks are 6-2. That's a 4:05 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Seahawks are favored by 6.5. And when I look at the two quarterbacks, you got Jameis Winston and then Russell Wilson. Both are very mobile guys, but one is more accurate, obviously, and that would be Russell Wilson. But 2 home losses in the first half of the season, that should be enough for Seattle. They were had by Baltimore coming in there and also by New Orleans. I don't think they're going to have the same fate against Tampa. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the difference between Baltimore and New Orleans, Teddy Bridgewater and Lamar Jackson were a lot more mobile than Jameis Winston. You said the over and under on this game was 6.5. I would think that would be the over and under on turnovers that Jameis Winston might produce in this game, Charlton. He's been the Achilles heels of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all year long, Charlton. They've been in games, but he's had this high-profile turnover problem that he's had. And the weather might be a little wet up in Seattle.
Yep.
He's had a hard time. He had 2 fumbles last week. He may have 3 this week.
Well, Russell Wilson on the other side of the ball, he's looking at MVP. He's 17 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. Doesn't have a lot of big numbers, but averaging 266 yards per game. He's just an amazing quarterback, and I really like the way he plays. Maybe Winston can look at him and see how a quarterback can comport himself on and off the field. I want to go to the Cleveland Browns, another much ballyhooed team. Remember when the season started, or even before it started, everyone was saying that Cleveland's a playoff team. Well, you didn't say it, but a lot of people were saying this is a playoff team. They have the quarterback they want. They got the defense. They got the Odell Beckham Jr. They had so much hype going into it. They've been on TV as if they're a winning team. They're 2-5 on the season. At the Denver Broncos, 2-6. Up in the Mile High Stadium, Big C, a 4:25 kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. But the Browns are favored by 3.5 going into Mile High. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it does. The Broncos are going to be without their starting quarterback Joe Flacco, so they're going to start their backup quarterback Allen this week. Charlton, he's going to get his first live NFL action to start a game, just like Dwayne Haskins in Washington. But I picked the Cleveland Browns to win 6 games this year, Charlton. This could be one of those 6 games they win. But we know that the Denver Broncos have a formidable pass rush, Charlton, that can get after Baker Mayfield. But also that Denver Bronco offensive line has been paltry all year long, Charlton. And so it's going to be an easy pass for Myles Garrett and the rest of that group. This game, to me, is truly a toss-up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Even if Denver doesn't have a great quarterback right now, the great Joe Flacco. With Flacco, they were 2-6. Sometimes you need a change, and they may get that win with the backup coming in. The Green Bay Packers had a big win playing last week at Kansas City. They continue taking on the AFC West. The Packers are 7-1 with discount double check. They're at the Chargers, which are 3-5. And Phillip Rivers playing like he just doesn't have that desire anymore. I know people say, how do you tell that? His shoulders are down a lot when something doesn't go right. That's not what you want to see. It's a 4:25 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Green Bay Packers are on the road again. And this time they come into 27,000-seat stadium, a 3.5 favorite on the road. And you know they'll have more fans than the Chargers will. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I still think this Chargers offense is smarting because Josh Gordon held out at the beginning of the season. Everyone talked about how the other backs are doing, but the consistency that Gordon and Phillip Rivers have had together for the past several seasons, Charlton, they just haven't gotten on track, and Phillip Rivers has looked uncomfortable all season long. He has not been able to get the ball to the receivers. The defense has not lived up to their preseason building that they had from the previous year.
Right.
Green Bay Packers have done all the right things this year. They have tremendous young receivers, Charlton.
Yeah.
That secondary with the Chargers is a little beat up. This should be an easy road game for the Packers.
Well, you look at how the Packers have played. I know they found a way to go into Dallas and got a big win over Dallas when people thought there's no way they could do it. And then they went to Kansas City, and, of course, without Mahomes, people said, well, Packers going to win. But this is a team also, they're going up against another quarterback that people thought was maybe, at least playoff caliber again this year. But it just seemed like the Chargers are missing something. And you saying that when they had that holdout with Gordon, a lot of people thought the opposite way, that it would help them because he would have fresher legs later in the season. You disagree, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I disagree. I mean, when you look at any athlete, Charlton, you hold out a major part of the season, you haven't had any preseason reps. We've seen that with a lot of quarterbacks that struggled the first couple of games. I see the same thing with the Chargers offense. Gordon hadn't had any reps. To get the timing down with his lineman, Charlton, to get the timing down with the quarterback, that hurts when you haven't had it, and when you come into the regular season, everybody's playing full tilt.
Yeah.
Not like in the preseason where you're playing against a lot of backups. The Chargers also down 2 of their top defensive backs, Charlton, so that hurts them on the back end in the secondary. And the way that the Packers are playing right now, especially with Aaron Jones at running back, this brought a different tangible to their offense, which allows Aaron Rodgers a much more space on the back end to throw the football.
Yeah. Well, you look at this Chargers defense, they're giving up 117 yards, rushing per game. But Phillip Rivers has thrown 6 interceptions also, so he has to break out at some point in time. It's just amazing how this team was in the playoffs last year, and it just doesn't seem to have that same kick this year. But we'll see. Got to find Keenan Allen and Mike Williams as well as tight end Hunter Henry. Now, let me get your thoughts on, I want to jump around because I have, 2 really big football games coming up on the season. And when I think about the state of the NFL, it's about players and about, what kind of players can make people pay attention. I want to jump into the biggest game of the weekend, and most likely a preview of the AFC Championship game, or at least at some point in time in the playoffs. The New England Patriots are 8-0 in the season. They're at the Baltimore Ravens, 5-2. It's an 8:20 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on NBC Sports. Now, the Patriots are favored by 3.5 going into that stadium with that type of ravenous crowd. It's going to be a night game. And I know that, Belichick's been amazing. And the Patriots have been able to score on defense. And maybe Jackson doesn't have the history behind them to outwit the defense of the Patriots. But if there's any chance that the Patriots could get knocked off, this is their toughest opponent, and they're facing them on the road. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Patriots have faced everybody home and on the road, Charlton. I don't think any opponent worries them more than the next opponent. Jackson brings a different dynamic to the table, though, with his mobility out of the backfield. That's what one of the things that makes it different. Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, is the intangible in this game. If you go back several years ago, he was the offensive coordinator for John Harbaugh's brother, Jim Harbaugh, when he was the head coach in San Francisco. He had a quarterback named Colin Kaepernick, who went into Foxborough and put up over 400 yards of total offense against this same Patriots organization. A lot of the personnel that's there now were not there then. But Greg Roman is going to bring that same mentality to the game and try to get those same type of exploits out of Lamar Jackson. But on the flip side, when you look at the Patriots, Charlton, they do what it takes to win. Every game, this is what it is. They bring the players. The players have a philosophy that they operate under. And then when you think about the quarterbacks that were drafted last year, this will be the fourth quarterback that was drafted last year that the Patriots will face. And they've only scored one touchdown between the previous three quarterbacks, Darnold, Mayfield, and Allen. Those three quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson will be the fourth. Will he be able to put one or two touchdowns on the board against the Patriots? That's the thing. Young quarterbacks don't win against Bill Belichick. First and second-year quarterbacks, Charlton, he's 9-0 against those quarterbacks. Yeah,
it's amazing when you bring up that stat. Now, this is the same Ravens team that went across the country and beat the Seattle Seahawks. In fact, they were so impressed with how Jackson has matured because the Seattle defense is pretty legit too. Not as legit as the Patriots, of course, but they scored over 30 on the road. I don't know if they'll get 30 at home, but I know they'll probably be good enough for at least 3 touchdowns. And however they get it, they may get it because he's so hard to account for. I want to get your thoughts on something, because we think about guys like Randall Cunningham from way back in the day. Fran Tarkenton, not the same. You think about guys like Michael Vick that was just caused a lot of trouble for people because he could run. Steve Young when he was doing his thing. Russell Wilson, of course, is the magician. But you've said it too many times. When you look at what's happening with Jackson, he's still wet behind the ears. He only had 1 year of playoff experience. The Patriots have been in the playoffs like every year, it seems, that he's been alive almost. But give me your feeling, if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, what must Jackson do? He can't just be a runner in this game. He has to be patient too, Big C, or does he just keep running and hoping he can be patient and throw next? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's a misgiving that people think that he runs all the time, Jonathan. He doesn't. It's not him. It's his receivers. His receivers have dropped so many balls this year. Jackson has put the ball on the money, but his receiving core has not matured yet to deliver the goods every time he gets the ball to him. And so that's been the one Achilles heel of the Baltimore Ravens more than Jackson's running. It's been the inability of his receivers to make key receptions. If they can hold on to the ball, Charlton, that's going to be the most difficult task for the New England Patriots. They have the linebackers, they have the scheme that makes it just as difficult for Jackson to realize what's going on as vice versa on the other side. I still give the advantage to the Patriots because of the maturity of the defense and the lack of maturity of the Baltimore offense.
Wow, look at that. That should be a great game. Have a little bit of static in your microphone. We'll try to clear it up. Last game for the NFL this week, Big C. It goes to Monday. It's a big one. Cowboys 4-3 at the Giants 2-6. It's big for media purposes and for the Dallas Cowboys, not for the Giants. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Monday on ESPN, and the Cowboys are favored by 7.5. Big C, how about them Cowboys? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a must-win game for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott found his form again last week, Jonathan. The defense finally rised up for the Cowboys. And when we think about the young quarterback, Daniel Jones, with the New York Giants, Charlton, I think he's come back down to earth, and a lot of people have figured out what he could do. He brings some mobility to that Giants offense, but it's not enough, Charlton. Dallas has a tremendous pass rush. They're going to get after him frequently and often, Charlton, so he's going to be uncomfortable in the pocket. If this Dallas Cowboys offensive line can hold up against this Giants defense, Charlton, it should be a field day for the Cowboys.
Well, I'm looking forward to a lot of good football coming up over this weekend, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe. That's iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. Also, you can follow Big C Sports watching on Roku TV, on Fire TV, Amazon TV, and a large number of TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to just finish up real quick with a little bit of what's going on in the world of the NBA. We have a lot of teams that are just competing to get started. I just feel bad for the Warriors. I know nobody else does, but when you've had such success, 5 straight years, NBA Finals, it seems like they're the walking wounded. But out on the East Coast, Eastern Conference, we have Philadelphia atop the heap, followed by Toronto, and they're followed by Boston, and then you have Brooklyn, and then New York taking up the bottom of the East. In the Southeast Division, you have Miami, followed by Atlanta, and then you have Orlando with Charlotte and Washington. In the Central Division, you have Milwaukee on top, followed by Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, and Chicago. Anyone impressing you on the East Coast so far, or is it still too soon to think about that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, as you look at the NBA season, you're a week into the season, Charlton. I mean, this is just still basically like preseason. Everybody's filling themselves out. I haven't seen any team yet that shows me that they're the most dominant team in the NBA. And maybe in a month or two, we'll have something more sorted out.
In the Western Conference Southwest Division, San Antonio, they took a fall to the LA Clippers, but you have Houston, Dallas, Memphis, and New Orleans, so a lot of people still have it. It's all up in the air. I still like San Antonio and Houston challenging there. And then the Northwest Division, Utah, which is a very dominant team. They're going to challenge Denver. You have Minnesota, Portland, and Oklahoma City. In the Pacific Division, wow, a lot of things changing, Big C. The Lakers at the top of the division, along with Phoenix, the LA Clippers, and the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are still, winless on the season, but Golden State's not so much better with only one win. Give me your feeling for who may come out. I mean, we can't say it right now, but how do you like the Western Conference so far compared to the Eastern Conference?
Well, I think after the first game of the season, everybody said that the Clippers had ran away with the conference. But as we've seen as things go on, you're talking about Phoenix being right up there in the top of the conference. So it's a long ways to go. I don't really look at the NBA until we're 50 games into the season, because that's when you've kind of, knocked the wheat from the shaft, Charlton, and everything starts to figure itself out.
Yeah, that's very true. So we love bringing you Big C Sports and just letting people know that it's a really great time of year for sports. And I also am very grateful, for so many things, and thank God for some favor today. And I just want to wish everybody the best. It's a beautiful day, November the 1st. A lot of things getting ready for, the new year coming in about 60 days. People are all getting ready for Thanksgiving and then the holidays coming up. So it's a great time of year. I just ask that young people stay safe when you're out there driving. Please drive careful, and just ask for God's favor. Big C, I want to know just one more thought going into the beautiful November 1st. What kind of candy did you consume on Halloween, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I didn't get a chance to consume any, but I put a bowl out on my porch, and I left a sign with underneath the light, "Please be considerate of others and just take a handful." Somebody took the whole damn bowl, Charlton.
Well, sometimes people can't read, Big C. Don't blame guys that can't read. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Houdini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, as you often talk about the NBA going on tonight in Brooklyn, you got the NBA's top 2 scorers in James Harden and Kyrie Irving. what's ironic about that, you're leading the NBA in scoring, and neither one of those teams will win their division.
Well, that's true, but they can shoot it up. And you know when they get the ball, they're not going to pass it. They're going to shoot it, and you can shoot it too. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, is never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.